We're going to go ahead and get started. I know Director Bailey's in the building, and he'll be here shortly. I'd like to call the public hearing for May 1st, 2018 to order and convene the board as the Budget Committee. Thank you all for being here. The board has set aside this evening to hear comments on the superintendent's proposed 2018-2019 budget. We currently have, I think, 10 people signed up to testify, and I think we had originally said 2 minutes for testimony. If we stay at 10 or even go a little bit above that, we'll go ahead and go to, if you want to go to 3, that's fine. We were just anticipating a longer list, so we can provide some flexibility. The board, acting as the budget committee, will take everything into consideration before approving the budget, which our vote on to approve the budget is scheduled for June 12th. We'll also have a budget listening session on May 15th, and the time and location will be determined and it will be posted on the PPS website. Childcare is available this evening, and we also have interpreters with us tonight. I'd like to ask them to come forward, introduce themselves, and indicate where they'll be located in the room.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Татьяна. Если вам нужен русский перевод, пожалуйста, подойдите с правой стороны, и я буду вам помогать. Добро пожаловать. Спасибо.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Jocelyn Pereira, yo soy intérprete de español. Si me necesitan, por favor, levanten la mano y me puedo sentar cerca de ustedes. Gracias.
"我姓马，我是做中文翻譯，假如你有需要我幫忙的，我可以幫你。我姓馬，我係做中文翻譯嘅，如果你需要咧，我可以幫你。係咁，拜拜。
Good evening, my name is Đạo Don. I'm Vietnamese translator for tonight. Xin chào, nếu quý vị cần giúp đỡ về ngôn ngữ tiếng Việt, xin vui lòng gặp tôi ở cuối phòng. Cảm ơn.
Thank you. So before we begin and have public comment tonight and have our public hearing, I'm going to ask Ryan Dutchert, the interim budget manager, to provide some background on the proposed 2018 and 19 budget. And I'll note that the Finance Audit and Operation Committee has had discussions about this year's budget. We've also had extensive discussions in the last couple of months about staffing that's included in the budget. And we just came out of a 2-hour work session on the budget, and we'll have this as an agenda item for the next several meetings. So with that, Mr. Dutcher, if you want to provide an overview of the superintendent's budget proposal.
Sure, glad to do it. Yeah, so good evening. My name is Ryan Dutcher. With me tonight I have Molly Bradley, who's been helping out with the budget process as well. So really what we had planned is we'll go through the same message that was delivered to the board, just to give people that are interested, to give them some context on how we're thinking about the budget this year. Okay. So most of this focus is on our general fund. Our general fund is our largest fund by far, and the fund that funds most of our teachers, most of our personnel and operating expenses. So most of the discussion tonight is on the general fund. It's a little bit less than half of our total spending at PPS, though. Generally speaking, what you're going to see tonight is how we balance the budget. So just for context, we're in the second year of the biennium for next year. The Oregon Department of Education appropriated $8.2 billion for the biennium, and that was split about 50-50 between the years. There was a quality education model that was developed a few years ago, and the estimate was that that's about $2 billion short relative to what the state needs for K-12 education. And if we were to convert that into what that would mean for PPS, that's about $180 million over 2 years. So about $90 million a year is what would be short from delivering that full education model that would give us a full level of services for our students. In that context, we've worked hard to prioritize staffing and services that we believe will have the most impact on our students, and you should see that reflected in the presentation tonight. And largely, to balance the budget, really what we've done is we've had increases, not surprisingly, for our personnel expenses and our healthcare expenses. And we've made that balance through largely reducing our central office and then also squeezing our budget reserve to a level that's lower than what would be optimally ideal for a district of this size. So just really quickly to give you some context, our general fund overview, you can see what our budget was last year, and I'll talk about the total resources here. It's going to go from 617 million to, we're estimating, about 650 million. Because we have a balanced budget, you can see the requirements will increase by that same amount, and our expenses then will increase, starting about 597 in last year's budget to about 627 in this year's budget. Okay. Largely what's driving the resource increases, you can see here our state school fund is expected to increase a little bit. This is largely based on a little bit of an enrollment increase over last year. Our gap tax and our local option tax, these are all tax revenues that are relative to our local tax base. And not surprisingly, that is appreciating, so we expect some increases there. I'll also call out our high-cost disability is also increasing. We had been underestimating that in previous years, so that's a more accurate reflection of what it should be. Another one is our investment earnings. With a recent addition of a treasury manager, we put those dollars to work. We're seeing returns better than what the district had seen in the past. So this budget reflects those investment earnings increases. You'll also see our ending fund balance, which is a reflection of our spending this current year. We expect that our ending fund balance will also deliver an increase as well. So the upshot of this page is that we expect resources will be about $33 million higher over last year's budget. In the interest of time, I won't go through this in a lot of detail. This is an estimate of how we expect to end the current year, so 2017-18, and what we had budgeted for an ending fund balance, about 20 million, and then some ins and outs and how we expect that amount to increase as we look forward to the end of this year. So this is the end of June of 2018. And then our expenditures are following that same trajectory. So you can see our school site budget increasing pretty substantially here over the last 3 years. Our central office, and our central office includes what we're calling the centrally administered school resources. So these are resources that are allocated directly to schools, special education, ESL, transportation, but are actually budgeted in our central office. Makes that number look quite large. And then you can see our budget reserve increasing by about $5 million there. So before we go into spending in more detail, and we are moving pretty quickly here because I want to make sure we can get to the public's comments, I'm going to turn over to Molly and she can talk a little about the spending.
So when we did the budget this year, we had our set of investment priorities. Number one was into schools. We wanted to make sure the schools were staffed appropriately and that we had the professional development for those teachers. We also are rolling out what we call the Equity 2.0, which is really about creating a culturally responsive community partnerships. So going out in the community and ensuring that we are doing our part, bringing those underserved or other people into the fold of the education system. And of course, planning for the future, because we don't have to look beyond just today. We have to see what's going on next year and the following year. So the school site budgets, this is just a quick graph to show that over time we have invested more and more into school sites. And these dollars represent the faculty that is in the actual schools, not what we carry in the central office. As you can see that the wage costs have gone up along with the fringe, health and welfare, et cetera. Feel free to ask any questions. I know I'm going kind of quickly. I'm going to skip over this eye chart. This is the leadership organization chart that was proposed at 423, the last week's meeting. And just shows how, so one thing I really want to focus on, and I think it's great to bring to people highlighting, is the central office, is how the spend is kind of bifurcated between what we call the central administered school resources and what's the central office portion. So when you look at that huge number, we just want to bring to light that in that is the cost to bus children to school back and forth, the special education needs, substitutes. There's a lot of different costs in there. This is not a holistic list, and we just pulled out the big buckets. So even though what we're still saying is still central office, it could be parsed even further to say it's costs to support the children in the schools. And then this is a breakdown by the different teams. And so, again, you can see of the different teams who is considered central administered school resources, how much is central. And some of it may be, look a little bit deceiving, but human resources has a huge piece that's considered central administered school resources. This covers the substitute spend. We put it under the HR umbrella so that they could, so the spend can be understood, and we're making sure we're leveraging that substitute spend as well as possible. One of the pieces also that we had from year to year is our PERS rate. We just wanted to call this out that it's flat for last year and this year. And then with the changes in the future years, we're gonna see about a triple cost increase, which is something that we have to look forward to in the future. We are planning to offset part of that by a credit that we have sitting in another fund to help reduce the impact in the 2019-2020 year. However, it is still a headwind that we're going to have to face looking forward. So as a team, we're very aware of, we're not only looking at this year, but we're trying to look forward also to understand what the implications are. Following this is our top 10 contracts vendors. Again, this just to speak out, this is money that we have currently in the budget. It does not commit us to anything. We're still evaluating these vendors to ensure that the spend is what we, it's the amount of spend, and we're spending the dollars right and getting the right benefits from them. But we just wanted to give everyone an idea of, when you look at the dollars, where some of these dollars are going. And Ryan touched about the budgeted reserve, which is our the dollars that we set aside the pool of money, one portion for school sites, one portion for central office, and one portion for the budgeted reserve. And this dollars over time needs to climb to equal 5% of our overall general fund. And so this year we're making some strides to get closer to that, but in the out years, again, this is going to be a piece of spend that is going to take a piece of that pie. So just again want to be aware of that. So as we put the budget together, there were some investments that came through that we just want to be clear and transparent that aren't included in the numbers that we have proposed. And there's quite a few items here. We have high-level estimates. We would need to do more due diligence to understand the exact spend around them. But it's, again, in a spirit of transparency, to let people know that these costs are still, these are still outstanding items when we talk about the next year's budget. And like any other thing, a budget is not a perfect item. There are some risks to the budget that we know of and we want to call out. We're still building out the middle school. What those transition costs are going to be. Actual salaries for new teachers. We do an average when we look at the vacancies. So if the actuals come in higher, that could be a risk. The Health and Welfare Trust Board concerning the actual health and welfare costs that we'll set for 2018, 2019 could impact our budget also. And of course, with the risks comes, we have to look for opportunities and what we can do. So some of the pieces that we know that we can look at and possibly leverage is how do we reduce our reliance on substitutes, evaluate a comprehensive transportation plan. What does that mean? Are we getting the best bang for our buck? Reduce our workers' comp rate. Currently, we have a small surplus in that, and to ensure that we're aligned so we're not charging ourselves too much. We need to analyze the likely pressure or changes from federal grants so that we don't get caught flat-footed in the future about any changes coming down the pipe for that. And then, of course, there's always various processes, data, and system improvements that we can leverage that will help, again, free up funds in the future to support the education.
Okay, so as we think forward, obviously this is for the 2018-19 budget. We did want to look at some of the pieces that are coming down the wire that we need to be prepared for. And as we look to the future, we have a couple things that we think are going to provide some financial relief. New biennium and the expectation that funding levels will be higher. At this point, it's really early, so really hard to tell exactly how the state's going to appropriate K-12 education funding. $9 billion would represent about a 10% increase. And then from an enrollment point of view, we're expecting just about flat, as it has been for this current year. It was pretty close to flat. So we expect the same thing. On the pressure side, there are a few pieces that we know of today, and we could make this list quite a bit longer if we wanted to be more speculative. But we are pretty certain we'll have a PERS cost increase that could be about 3 times. And this will be experienced across the state. PPS is in far better shape than most agencies of the same size because of our other investments. But we will see an increase. Our health and welfare cost will increase as well. And then the board has a goal of increasing the budget reserves, and that was the chart that Molly referenced, by 2021. And putting us on that track will obviously take cash out of the budget. It's the right thing to do from a financial planning point of view, but it restricts spending in the short term. So we did a quick revenue outlook, rolled our revenue out over the next couple of years, 1920 and 2021, under a couple different scenarios. One with a baseline. I'll focus on the 2021 number here at 681 million. And then if we have a moderate recession, it's 659, and then a more severe recession that gets us down to 633. And we have a list of assumptions behind that to understand what might drive those, and the large, kind of not surprising pieces are how the state appropriates dollars to K-12, our property tax growth within the district, and then the assessed value growth as well. So those are the main, there are other pieces in here, but those are the main drivers. And then if we were just to compare the different revenue forecasts from what we've identified as spending pressures, this just gives us an idea of, I won't go into a lot of details here, but just some red numbers if you just take those scenarios today and we weren't to manage them actively, gives you some red numbers that we need to be aware of. So I think it's just a message for us to make sure that we're really planning not just for the next 16 months, but we're planning for the next 2 or 3 years in advance as well, because it will be not just for PPS, but it'll be difficult really across the state. Okay, and then just really quickly, just to give people an idea on expectations for the future, just some key dates here for the budget process. The board is scheduled to approve the budget on June 12th, and then to adopt the budget on June 26th. So this amount of time here between the proposed budget and approve is largely to gather input from our numerous stakeholders. Okay.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Okay.
All right, thank
Thank
you
you.
both
Thank you.
very
One-
much. Really
One
appreciate it.
quick question.
Yeah.
So how severe is a severe recession, like a 2008, or sort of close to that bad, but not really that bad?
Actually, yeah, it'd be close to that bad. I'm doing some of this from memory. Close to that bad, but not that bad, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
All right, so this is the portion of our budget hearing which will hear public comment. We won't be making any decisions tonight, but the public comment we hear this evening should inform the board's thinking about the budget. And as I said, we have some follow-up meetings where there'll be additional opportunities for comment. Also, when we approve the budget, there'll be an opportunity there as well. So Ms. Houston, let's see, before we start public comment, I'm just going to provide an overview of our guidelines. We appreciate the public engaging in our hearing tonight, and we value public input as it informs our work. The board's job is to actively listen. Board members and the superintendent will not respond to comments or questions during the public comment. Guidelines for public comment or public input emphasize respect and consideration for others. Presenters will have a total, as I said earlier this night, I think given how many people we've have signed up, you can have 3 minutes. Please start by stating your name, spelling your last name for the record. During the first 2 minutes of the testimony, a green light will appear. When you have 1 minute remaining, a yellow light will go on, and when the red light goes on, we'd ask you to wrap up. And since it's a little bit different than a regular board meeting and we don't have a limit on the slots, please feel free to sign up with Ms. Houston during the board meeting if you want to speak. So with that, Ms. Houston, do you want to call the first 2 individuals signed up?
Jennifer Samuels and Christy Scattarella.
Hi, thank you. Am I on? Thank you for having us tonight. I'm Jennifer Samuels, Samuels, and I'm here to speak tonight on behalf of the Portland Public Schools K-3 Read Together initiative. Since the fall of 2014, the PPS K-3 Read Together initiative has brought together the district, 6 nonprofit and community partners, including Children's Book Bank, Multnomah County Library, Reading Results, BPI, The Shadow Project, and SMART, and 5 priority and focus schools, to work together to make improvements toward third grade reading outcomes for PPS K through third graders, ultimately making improvements toward high school graduation rate. The group of partners provide a coordinated suite of cost-effective wraparound services designed to support each school in building a culture of literacy. The services we provide are aligned with PPS's Equity-Based Balanced Literacy Initiative. They support PPS's literacy goals and racial equity goals and aim to empower students to read in school, after school, and at home. We also align with the Equity 2.0 initiative, bringing cultural responsive services and student-specific services to historically underserved students at the schools we serve. In 2016, PPS's data and evaluation team concluded that the students served at the Read Together schools made gains in reading at statistically significant higher rates as compared to students at similar schools. The Read Together initiative is among the painful cuts slated for next year. Annually, the Read Together initiative costs PPS a little less than $250,000, and the partners use that to leverage another $330,000 back into the schools. And outside of the project, the group of partners bring nearly another $1 million in services, direct services, volunteerism, and learning materials directly into the schools we serve. Our principal Newsom at our partner school, Rosa Parks, shared that losing the Read Together initiative will be devastating to her students and her school community. So a few words about who benefits from maintaining the Read Together initiative. 133 first, second, and third graders participate in more than 6,000 30-minute reading intervention sessions. 164 early grade students participate in 3,500 30-minute sessions reading with adults. 85 special ed identified students have hours of one-on-one and small group support and goal setting. Over 2,000 students get to keep and bring home over 21,000 books, including over 400 culturally specific titles, and 500 parents have 11 Black biracial cultural literacy nights, workshops, and fairs. Thank you for your time, and I request you consider reinstating the Read Together initiative.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, I'm Christy Scattarella, and that's S-C-A-T-T-A-R-E-L-L-A, long but phonetic. First, I want to thank you for championing the Read Together initiative last year and for your commitment to the idea that when schools and families and culturally responsive community-based organizations come together, we can accomplish great things for our kids. Because as we all know, these kids are not just the school's responsibility. These children are the community's. They're everybody's responsibility. And that's why Portland Public Schools came to us some years ago as part of a long-range plan with the idea of supporting schools in building and strengthening a culture of literacy at 5 high-need schools. The partners jumped in, and we spent over a year volunteering our time to create a very specific and detailed action plan and a strong coalition. Well, thanks to you, we've had a 4th year, and the schools I know are very grateful for that as well. We appreciate how you put our trust in our ability to follow through and to really help move the dial for our underserved populations. I want you to know that we take that commitment very seriously. So independently, we produced, and I know it's kind of long, but we produced a report that details the activities, the outputs, and the outcomes that have resulted from this project in the last year. The Read Together partners are also they're founding members of a coalition that has been advocating with state leaders to really advocate for our children and for the community-based organizations that can really support schools. And we've had a lot of meetings where we're hearing a lot of interest actually just in Read Together as a demonstration project. The state has expressed some interest in how we can continue to fund programs like this, how we can seed future partnerships, and how we can have partnerships like this work throughout the state of Oregon. And finally, I just would like to share with you a couple of things that you made happen this past year that you're not going to find in the report. One of them is the look of pride on a child's face, and I should say child after child after child, when he reads he's been struggling with reading, and all of a sudden, he's not just reading a whole grade level, but he has increased an entire intervention level in less than a year. And the way a little girl is finally, for the first time, being transported into a culture of literacy and literature, because when she's opening books now more and more, she's seeing characters who look just like her. And for our special education students, who I have to tell you, a lot of them don't really see themselves as
just have one
readers.
last thought and wrap up?
Okay.
Please, thank you.
I just want you to know that these kids have now, 3 of the 5 schools, these children participated in a national reading contest using assistive technology, and they placed as high in the top 7 percentile in the country. So thank you. Let's do it together. Let's keep Read Together going. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sarah Van Buskirk and Brian Conley.
Hi, I'm Sarah Van Buskirk. It's VanBuskirk. I'm a mother of 5 PPS students, including a current 7th grader and an incoming 6th grader at Da Vinci Arts Middle School. I'm also co-PTSA president of Da Vinci. I'm here today to advocate for PPS to utilize decision-making and communication protocols with greater transparency, equity, efficiency, and the inclusion of feedback from all stakeholders. This is particularly relevant in light of the revelation of the significant under-budgeting of the recent bond measure by $89 million so far. It seems clear that taxpayers are funding this measure based on faulty information. Another pertinent example of the damage done by insufficient public communication is the important effort to find a new home for Access, which continues to be in limbo, which has caused significant undue negative impact to all involved. The Da Vinci community fully aligns itself with Access's demand for an appropriate home for their students, not at the expense of Da Vinci, which already runs at capacity and does not have adequate available space to make this a feasible reality. We cannot understand why the feedback of impacted school communities is not solicited during this decision-making process, and instead communities continue to be blindsided with final plans for changes they have no voice in shaping. This lack of communication and respectful inclusion breeds mistrust, confusion, and as the press has documented, a series of rightfully panicked and enraged school communities, which all deserve a safe, suitable facility in which to thrive, just as Access also deserves. Here's a specific example of the lack of positive consensus-building communication. Last Friday, Da Vinci families received an email from Deputy Superintendent Curtis on the possibility of co-housing Access at Da Vinci. The letter stated, "We ask that everyone keep an open mind as we explore a variety of possibilities," followed by, "Once a decision is final, we will work with principals to schedule meetings for newly co-located school communities to meet each other and ask questions of district officials." How can a school community be told to have an open mind about their program being altered without inviting, welcoming, and listening to the feedback of those communities? The suggestion is that we sit tight and keep quiet while the final decision is bestowed on us, and that only at that point should our questions and concerns be answered. After a few days of advocacy by many Da Vinci families, it is clear that our program won't be as significantly altered as many feared. However, we're still awaiting any more information about how co-locating with Access might even work, or even if that is if that possibility is still on the table. It's discouraging and deeply upsetting that we were all kept in the dark as the process was unfolding, and that we continue to be excluded from the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Conley. That's BrianConley. I told Karen that I had a question to clarify about busing costs, because at the time I had been told that the board did not want to hear from Access parents because the Access is not included anywhere in the superintendent's budget. That's disturbing, because that's exactly why all of these people are here. The budget's not itemized. We haven't seen an itemized budget despite the same presentation being given a week ago, so we don't know. Currently, Access students, we have between 161 and 215 students using buses. We have 8 buses. The bus need is likely to double when you put us at 2 sites. Mr. Vincent said that you would need to double the transportation cost to $1.4 million. I'm not sure where that's in the budget. You might be inclined to tell me that 70% of transportation costs comes from the state. That's great. But back in February, Mr. Vincent told you the total cost for facilities construction was at $35 million, yet PPS only budgeted 16.8. Not upgrading sites for Pioneer students, keeping them where they are, and cutting the $3 million others only saves $7 million. You're still quite over. Dr. Curtis has told Access families in writing that our current level of service will remain. And I want to believe her, but I don't know how without evidence. I hear great things from the new district staff. You know, to be frank, like superintendent, the communication staff, the new deputy superintendent, we like what we hear, but what we see is the district moves forward with plans that reduces options for our children. Every student at Access, all 326, have been told by PPS that their needs can't be met anywhere else. These same students have heard our superintendent say he believes in equity and is the chief equity officer. Yet our students continue to be picked last. Our students, continue to be told we have to wait. Space is tight. We know space is tight. Our children are picked last. Many of them were picked last before they came to Access. They're nerds, they're smart kids, a lot of them. We know what that's like. We deserve a spot on the PPS team. If you truly value our kids, if you believe in equity, it's time to show some courage and make some enemies in the name of educational justice. History's not going to remember you because you balanced the budget. They're going to remember you because you showed leadership and explained to the rest of the district that our children have needs, and meeting their needs is the right thing to do. Please don't balance your budget at the expense of our children, and let us know how you're going to make up the difference, because you've already said that money it's more than what was budgeted, and you've already promised to keep our services that they are. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to briefly address a comment you raised. There was a miscommunication between myself and Ms. Hewson about the hearing tonight and the public comment. And the question was the hearing about Da Vinci or about Access? I said the hearing was about the budget, and that got translated into people couldn't testify, and that was a miscommunication, so I apologize that was what was communicated. But certainly Access, Da Vinci, all our other schools are in the budget. So it was a miscommunication, so I apologize that it got then translated into something else. Sorry.
Next, we have Judy Burke and Grace Groom.
I'm Judy Burke, but I'm not feeling great, and so I've asked Cody to pinch hit for me.
I'm Cody Weathers, CODYWEATHERS. Echoing much of what Brian said, with a split, a likely possibility the students of Access deserve a commitment in this budget to preserve certain services at both sites above and beyond what may have been anticipated in the current fiscal year. These include, but are not limited to, FTE in support of Walk to Math for elementary school students requiring middle school math, and also middle school requiring high school math, transportation from all corners of PDX, special ed, technology, and language. You've asked for our patience and you've asked for our faith and trust, and we, in return, ask that you champion this program and commit to making it stronger, even as it wanders. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Grace Groom, Groom. Since it's a budget hearing, I brought some numbers. 61% at Beach, 67% at Bridger, 72% at James John, 75% at Scott, 81% at Martin Luther King Jr., 84% at Lent, 85% at Sitten, 87% at Cesar Chavez. Those are the percentages of the historically underserved students, and I would argue currently underserved students at those school buildings that are isolated in single-strand programs. Without a focus option review or a district-wide boundary review budgeted in the next budget, those numbers, those students behind the numbers will continue to be isolated and separated and not allowed educational justice. Access also needs a home. It needs a home in a climate and a budget time where we don't have a lot of money to spare. It needs, if it's going to be split, it's going to be more costly. It needs a home in locations that are close together. We don't have extra money to spend on extra staffing when these students don't have their core requirements met at those schools. It's irresponsible to put off focus option review any longer. It's irresponsible to put off district-wide boundary review any longer. We saw that PERS cost is going up quite a bit. If we put it off, it's not going to happen again for another 5, 10, however many years. I know you guys care about our kids, and I know that our superintendent cares about the education of our kids, and we won't be able to provide what all these students deserve and need, which is educational justice, without those two pieces added into the budget: focus option review and boundary review. We don't have to start from scratch. We all know we've got a lot of data already collected. We have a lot of people willing to do the work. We just got to put it in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Steve Buell and Jane Ann Peterson.
My name is Jane Ann Peterson, Peterson. I'm in my 12th year as an Access parent. I have 3 more to go. We're now in May, and our 338, I think that's the right number, children still have no home for next year. It seems clear that it is the plan to divide Access between 2 sites. We've been assured by Deputy Superintendent Curtis that any split for Access will maintain the same level of services, and it will be temporary. How are we to believe those assurances aren't merely empty promises? Where is the evidence that PPS has done the work to ensure that those promises become reality? Where in the budget are the costs for moving Access to 2 sites? 2 sites would mean not only additional costs in the actual move, but additional and ongoing costs to duplicate the services that are received by Access students now. SPED and 504 services, counseling, professional development for the new staff, and how to work with our population, those are all additional costs. Our students need real electives. They need programmatic integrity in maintaining our current Walk to Math program. Where are these costs in the budget? Additionally, maintaining the same level of services also means supporting Access's cohort community of learners. Where is the budget for preserving our all-school activities like Spelling Bee and Talent Show and after-school game club in which students mix across grades. All these costs are not one-time expenditures, but continue for the duration of a split. The farther apart any two sites are, the greater the costs. Where is the budget for ending a split and reuniting the program? Where is the budget for planning, for completing a real, thorough, and data-driven focus option and boundary review? Without this, the promise that any split will be temporary is also doomed to be an empty one. Why is this high-need population, these 338 children with no home next year, why are they taking the hit for PPS's lack of forethought and planning and its failure to live up to its own priorities? Why in this budget environment are you making the one program that works to serve highly capable students more expensive? Access needs a home. Don't split the atoms.
My name's Steve Buell, B-U-E-L, B as in boy. In the last 2 years, Portland Public Schools has moved to stabilize their libraries. And when I look at the budget, and when I call person after person, nobody can tell me where any money is for the libraries, for books and materials. They don't have any idea. We're getting pretty late down in the budget session. They've already begun the attack on libraries, which starts sometimes with people on this school board. But that attack on libraries is, to begin with, we've supposedly, as I understand it, taken 13 full-time librarians and cut them to half-time. But we're adding in the schools. Be interesting to know who's more critical out in our schools other than core teachers than librarians and libraries. Where is the money? The last 2 years we've spent about $250,000 on library books and materials. It's an incredible, inequitable system for years and years and years, ever since 1990. You got library books if you were in a nice neighborhood with a lot of people who would go to your little fundraisers, and they would then get library books in your school. But if you were in a poorer neighborhood where people weren't going to your fundraisers and didn't have the money to contribute necessarily to the same degree, then you didn't get as many library books and materials. That's the way it's worked for years. So 2 years ago, we started to stabilize that. So is the new superintendent now anti-library person, gonna cut our librarians back and not have any books for the libraries? Is that where we're going? Is that the new direction that this school board is going? Doesn't make sense to me. It's the exact opposite of where you go. It's extremely critical in a school, particularly in elementary school, that you can get kids into good books and that the good books are there. And for years and years, they haven't been there. And I don't know where they are. It'd be nice if somebody could tell me at least, okay, how much money do we have for library books and materials? And where is that going to come from? We figured it out 2 years ago where it came from, but evidently we don't know now, or no one is able to answer. I mean, I've talked to everybody I can possibly figure out. So there you go. So if this is a school board, anti-intellectualism, anti-library, we don't care about libraries, we don't care about the schools, you guys are doing a good job. But if that's not where you're going, get your act together, figure it out. Let's quit cutting librarians. Let's quit cutting library books and materials. I mean, you're going to have to make up your mind. I know you're not educators, basically, most of you, so you don't understand the critical role that a library plays in a school, but there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Buell.
Lastly, we have Catherine Greenblatt and Lindsay Strike. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on behalf of Da Vinci Arts Middle School. I'm going to read from a letter that I submitted to Yvonne Curtis this morning on behalf of many, many, many dozens of Da Vinci parents and community members and students. Late last Friday afternoon, as our school was preparing for the first of 3 spectacular dance performances, we received a letter from Yvonne Curtis notifying that the Da Vinci community was under consideration as a site for Access Academy's new home. It sent shockwaves through our school's world, as this was the first that we had even heard of the possibility. To our knowledge, no one in the PPS administration has performed an impact study of how this could affect Da Vinci's programs, the staff and the faculty, the student body, the school's academic needs and capacity, or its mission to focus on the arts. Nor at that time had there been any dialogue with any members of the Da Vinci community. As a community, we empathize with the situation that Access Academy finds itself in, and we truly hope that the board and the superintendent find the program a permanent home, one that suits its mission and serves the needs of its students. A few years ago, in the name of equity, PPS began the tough work of school boundary review, identifying the schools that are overcrowded and the ones that are under-enrolled, the buildings that are working well over their capacity, and the ones with space to spare. With this well-researched and current knowledge, it would seem to make sense that PPS could find a home for Access Academy that does not compete with or displace another program, especially one that is as successful and as vibrant as Da Vinci's program, one that serves the needs of so many different students. A few years ago, again in the name of equity, PPS studied the ways that lotteries have worked to sustain focus option schools as enclaves of racial and socioeconomic privilege. Second, I think that there were some members here. By re-weighting the lottery and broadcasting focus option programs more widely, more and more students of color have been enrolled at Da Vinci, along with more students who meet the criteria for free and reduced lunch. This increasing cultural and economic diversity has strengthened the school in a great variety of ways, especially in expanding our dance vernacular, making cultural sensitivity more urgent and concrete, giving us new ways of talking about immigration and the effects of our political climate on different populations. All of this has naturally led the school staff to reevaluate their approaches to teaching. Can I have that extra minute?
Go ahead.
Thank you. And so they too have become far more effective and reflective. But cuts to our program will mean fewer students of color or of need are able to gain access to our program. These students, discouraged by poor chances of getting in, may no longer even consider applying through the lottery and instead may choose other options for themselves, and there will be fewer opportunities for all of us to learn from each other. Our community has always been highly welcoming to many other marginalized populations as well. In particular, Da Vinci is warmly embracing of LGBT students who, in these complex middle school years, are just beginning to articulate their gender and sexual identities. Our sexually diverse and gender fluid students are openly self-expressive, fully accepted, and participate in every artistic discipline and medium of the school. Likewise, the arts focus of the school allows students with IEPs and a great range of learning styles to remain engaged in school. For many students, the arts are the reason they stay in school, their tether to academic classes, and their strongest motivation to succeed. These
I am
students.
going to have to ask you to, I'm sorry, I thought it was a short end, but
Oh.
can you wrap up?
Oh, wait.
Just in
these-
fairness to everybody else.
One more sentence.
okay,
These
one-
students do not merely want the arts, they need the arts. Thank you very much.
We have two more speakers, Pat Christensen and Jessica Colby. Yeah, go ahead.
Evening, Board. Pat Christensen, Christensen. I'm the current president of the District Council of Unions. For those of you who haven't been up on the board very long, I know some of you have been there a while and some of you are returning, and thank you for your service. I appreciate that. I also like to thank everybody who's given heartfelt testimony tonight about how the changes potentially can affect each and every one of the students and parents within the district, and our goal of educating the students is very important. And I wanted to get out there because I want you all to continue to use the process, and I appreciate that you're here, and I hope that you'll continue to use the process, but I'm going to switch the conversation for a moment from the students to the facilities. I represent the unions and the workers who maintain your facilities. Those workers that have been underfunded for decades that allowed the facilities to become $2 billion worth of deferred maintenance, which required the eventual replacement. For those of you that are new to the board and those of you that aren't, I want to remind you of the commitments that were made when the bond was passed. The union supported the need, the council supported the need, and we supported it from the position that we had assurances from the school board at the time that if we started rebuilding these buildings because it was cost prohibitive to try and catch up on the deferred maintenance that had been happened through 20 years of not properly funding your maintenance department so you could actually do a preventative maintenance program. And unfortunately, we became an emergency services department rather than a maintenance program. We responded to everyday emergencies. And unfortunately, today, as we speak, we're still doing the same function. We had a commitment from the board that if we got some new buildings going forward, that we would have additional staffing and actually implement preventative maintenance to take care of the taxpayers' new buildings. Unfortunately, looking at the proposal that's in front of us now, and I know that it's a work in process, and I'm hoping that you'll hear us and actually engage the council in future discussions, because we do have opportunities and ways that you can perform your work in more efficient fashion than what we currently see happening. But I see that there's major cuts for the maintenance department. This is a total reversal of your commitment to the people who supported your bond to build buildings, that you would take care of your new buildings and be responsible to the taxpayers that are supporting these new buildings to go forward and not repeat the cycle of building new, letting it deteriorate so that you can throw it away and ask for another $750 million bond. So please engage the council and the unions that supported you, because we have ways to support the work. We're not being engaged at this time, and we're ready and available to do so. So thank you.
Thank you.
So short, brief, and I'm saddened that we are in this budget situation and that you all have to deal with this. I really want to encourage putting money towards data collection. Jessica Colby, sorry, C-O-L-B-Y. I really want to encourage putting money towards focus option review and data collection. We are not going to be able to help all our neighborhood schools and keep them healthy if we don't look at these things. Vestal is losing kids. Access has no home. We're not a focus option. We are a school of need. Although, as many focus options, there are kids there who do need them. But, sorry, I came up here a little. So, I would also like to ask that you put money towards data collection for the soft neighborhood model and reviewing it. I really don't see how implementing the soft neighborhood model could put us in any worse position than we're in right now with the boundary review. But I think we really need to take a look at it. So please, money towards data collection, towards reviews, towards the soft neighborhood model. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more speaker, Raji Bhaskaran. Thank you for this opportunity. I have a 5-year-old. You can sit with me. I wasn't prepared to come up here, but since I was here, I thought I should at least tell a few words. I am Raji Bhaskaran, for the record, B-A-S-K-A-R-A-N. I am a parent of 2 PPS kids, including him. This is Rahul. Since this is budget, I will focus on budget related, but just to give an idea of why focus option needs to be reviewed. When we understood that my older kid, who is now in Access, was not fitting in his local school, mainly because he was really changing his character quite a bit to try to fit in and becoming, doing 1/10 of his interest things in order to be fitting into the clique crowd. We started looking for focus option schools, reviewed many of them, toured. We are the kind of parents who really do our homework. My husband toured the high school before we bought our home in Southeast neighborhood, when the first kid was 2.5. So believe me, we really think about this and do our numbers. And when we did the reason why we did not apply to many focus schools because finally it comes to lottery, and I don't feel like the kids' future. The philosophy of how one needs to be educated is purely based on only lottery at the end of the day. So we did not choose to do to any of the focus options, and we still did not even know about the existence of Access till about a year and a half later, well into second grade when the kid was, and he's still not fitting in, and that's when we actually did our own research and found out about Access, and after a year's wait, he got tested in. But just to let you know that, I think that Access, at least in a personal story, is a need, not necessarily a luxury. That's the only place he's thrived. And just to tell you another story, when this guy was tested and he qualified, it's not the same as having a need. His math, it's not only about the math or one particular thing. It's about fitting in. His kindergarten review says he barely meets math, whereas he was tested at 99.8 percentile. That's 998 kids out of 1,000. He's better than them, but in the local public school, he doesn't even meet the requirement according to the report. So just to let you know, if you had a kid who is 998 out of 1,000 in height, will you fund better chairs and tables that fit that kid's height? It's very similar to that. It's not necessarily an option. It's not a luxury. It's a need. So please fund more data collection for reviewing all the options and finding a way to keep Access together. Thanks.
Thank you.
We have another addition, Percy Marrow.
Hello, my name is Percy Marrow, M-A-R-R-O-W. There's a lot of people looking at me. Okay. So I'm a student at Madison High School. I'm here with some people from my Boy Scout troop. We're here to get a merit badge. And I don't know, I kind of...
Eagle Scout down there.
Yeah. I kind of just wanted to talk about the way that the budget is split up based off of population and less on student needs. Specifically, like, using an example with my school, Madison, we got $7 in donations last year, and I know there are some schools that get like hundreds of thousands of dollars from their parents because their families can afford it. And like other examples are our school, over 80% of the population requires free and reduced lunch. And there are other students at other schools who get so much money for simply in donations, and it doesn't really seem equitable, It's, I don't know, I don't really have much written down because this is very last minute, I'm sorry. I don't know, I just kind of want to encourage, as you look at the budget or decide where the money goes, just keep in mind that there are students who don't have as much money as everybody else and kind of need that. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan, is there anybody else feels they want to say something? So there's a budget hearing on May 15th. I'm looking to the Finance and Audit Committee. Where's Roseanne? May 15th. There'll be another budget hearing. On May 8th, we have our regular school board meeting, which is another opportunity for people to sign up for public comment. We'll also have a discussion about the budget at that meeting. Then we have a meeting on May 22nd, which is another one of our regular board meetings. That'll be another opportunity. In addition, on June 12th, we'll have our final consideration, board discussion, and approval of the document. In addition, I think I can speak for all of us that we get a lot of email, we read it. So we'll take the information that we've heard. And as I said, this has been a several-month process that we've received information and discussed with the superintendent staffing, which is really the majority of the budget. And certainly what some of the issues that were raised this evening are issues that individual board members have already raised as part of the process. So we expect discussion, potential amendments. The superintendent may make adjustments to his budget as well. So that's generally the process. And then we vote, have an approval on the 12th, and then we have a, where's Ms. Powell? I think we also have a TSPC, TSCC, which is a Tax Supervising Commission meeting. What's the date of that? And then the final vote, the final adoption vote on June 26th.
Right, and the TSCC will have their hearing on the same night.
Julia, even tonight, it wasn't on the board calendar. I think that's the problem. People didn't know about it because it's not on the calendar, it's on the internet.
So it should have been noticed over a month ago.
There was a public notice in the public notice section, but not on the calendar. Didn't show up on the calendar.
Well, I guess what I would say is, would people like to, anybody's free to come speak to us if you'd like right now. The floor is open. Well, May 15th, we'll have one, and we'll make sure it's posted, the location and the time.
I think we're looking at possible locations. So I just want to acknowledge, I think we are having an issue getting things posted onto the district calendar. And, okay, so we're going to fix it.
I guess I would ask again, is anybody who hasn't had a chance to speak already tonight like to speak?
Or if you're shy, I'm sure you can buttonhole one of us on the way out.
Okay. In addition, you can send comments to, is it schoolboard@pps.net, and that gets to all of us. Anything else from individual board members? Dr. Bailey?
Just thanks to everybody for coming out tonight.
Thanks, everybody. The meeting is adjourned.